In the heart of the Amazon, the world's largest tropical rainforest and a region teeming with life both beautiful and deadly, there exists an apex predator whose reputation strikes fear into most creatures that share its territory. The black caiman, a massive and fearsome crocodilian, is widely regarded as one of the most dangerous hunters lurking in the shadowy waters of the Amazon swampy labyrinth. Alongside it, the powerful South American jaguar, with its unmatched strength, stealth, and bone-crushing bite, is a predator so skilled that it can take down nearly any animal it sets its eyes on. Both creatures, perfectly engineered by nature for hunting and survival, reign supreme in their respective domains. And yet, against all odds, there exists a much smaller, unexpectedly formidable animal that even these predators tend to avoid: the giant otter of South America. While its cuddly and adorable appearance might mislead the casual observer into thinking it's harmless, those familiar with the region's wildlife know better. These otters are not only expert swimmers, capable of darting through water with remarkable speed and agility, but they are also fiercely territorial, highly intelligent, and operate in tightly bonded family groups that function like a well-coordinated strike force. When threatened or when their territory is intruded upon, giant otters can become absolutely relentless. They communicate with sharp vocalizations, coordinate their movements seamlessly, and launch fearless counterattacks against would-be invaders. It's not uncommon for caimans, and even jaguars, to suffer brutal, humiliating defeats when they make the mistake of challenging these river-dwelling warriors. Despite their size disadvantage, the otters' cooperation, speed, and ferocity make them one of the most underestimated yet dangerous animals of the Amazon. So next time someone talks about apex predators, remember this: in the mysterious, ever-unpredictable world of the Amazon, even the deadliest of killers may be forced to retreat when they cross paths with the so-called river wolves, the giant otters of South America. A deadly encounter, the otters versus the crocodile. Deep in the dense, tangled mangrove forest, where the air was thick with humidity and the silence only broke with sudden splashes, a cunning crocodile lay hidden beneath the surface of the murky river. With eyes just barely peeking above the waterline and its armored body camouflaged by the tangled roots and fallen leaves, the ancient predator remained perfectly still. It was waiting. Watching. Calculating. This was not just any hunting ground, it was the domain of a fearless family of giant otters. The crocodile was on a mission: to silently infiltrate enemy territory and snatch an unsuspecting prey. With cold precision, it slithered forward through a narrow channel, moving slowly but with purpose. It weaved its way through thick clusters of aquatic plants and dense tree trunks, careful not to disturb the water too much, knowing that even the faintest ripple could alert the vigilant otters. But despite its stealth, the croc had underestimated its opponents. Suddenly, like a pack of warriors defending their homeland, the otters emerged, swift, synchronized, and relentless. They had caught the faint scent of their unwelcome guest and were now launching a full-scale counterattack. In an instant, the tranquility of the river shattered as splashes exploded on all sides. The crocodile, caught off guard by the speed and coordination of the otters, tried to retreat. But it was too late. The giant otters were fearless, attacking head-on with a fury that could rival the fiercest predators of the wild. They bit, clawed, and dove in from all directions. Each strike was deliberate. They weren't just defending their territory, they were delivering a message. Overwhelmed and outnumbered, the crocodile twisted and turned, trying desperately to escape. But the power dynamic was entirely one-sided. The otters, driven by instinct and unbreakable family bonds, showed no mercy. Blow after blow rained down, until finally, the ancient reptile could no longer resist. With a final thrash of its tail, it succumbed to the relentless assault. The otters had claimed victory. And they didn't stop there. These creatures weren't just playful river dwellers, they were tactical, ruthless, and absolutely fearless. They shared ancestral lineage with the honey badger, and like their infamous cousin, they had a notorious reputation for chaos and confrontation. In the animal kingdom, their name struck fear even among seasoned predators like leopards and crocodiles. In another breathtaking moment, the otters spotted a smaller, solitary crocodile basking by the riverbank. At first, they approached cautiously, inspecting the creature in silence. Then, without warning, they disappeared. But the calm was short-lived. Moments later, driven by their inborn instinct to provoke, the otters returned. Only this time, they weren't passive observers. One by one, they began circling the crocodile, diving near its tail, nipping at its limbs, pushing it toward the water's edge. The crocodile stayed still, eyes narrowed, clearly annoyed, but it knew better. It was no match for 4 aggressive, full-grown giant otters acting in unison. But peace wasn't an option. Despite its unwillingness to engage, the otters kept taunting it relentlessly. They poked, prodded, and bit at its tail like mischievous ghosts daring a monster to awaken. The crocodile could only take so much. Finally, with a growl and a mighty shove, it backed down into the water, defeated not by force, but by frustration. Only then did the otters turn their backs and glide away, satisfied, victorious, and ready for their next meal. Elsewhere in the wild, the predator hierarchy was constantly being tested. The leopard, with its unmatched agility and raw killing instinct, continued to dominate the food chain. But even it had to tread carefully in a world where the line between hunter and hunted could vanish in an instant. For in nature, respect is earned in blood, and survival is the only prize. Kingdom of claws and teeth, the wrath of the river lords. In the wild, untouched heart of the rainforest, where ancient trees loom like sleeping giants and the air thrums with life and danger, a shadow moved beneath the surface of the dark, slow-moving river. It was a crocodile, scarred, ruthless, and patient. A master of ambush, it had stalked prey through countless battles, waited out droughts and floods alike. But today, it was venturing into perilous waters, seeking to breach a domain not ruled by any beast of brute force, but by intelligence, speed, and unbreakable family bonds. This was otter territory. The crocodile was no fool. It moved silently, gliding just beneath the surface, its moss-covered back blending with the waterlogged debris floating above. It edged through a forest of twisted roots and overhanging vines, each movement calculated, each pause deliberate. It knew its prey was near, unsuspecting, perhaps even overconfident in its territory. The otters were agile and swift, yes, but it had faced worse. Or so it thought. But something was off. A sudden shift in the wind. A flicker in the shadows. Then a sharp bark echoed across the river. It was too late. Without warning, a family of giant otters exploded from the reeds, sleek bodies slicing through the water like torpedoes. Their formation was flawless, like a military unit trained in underwater warfare. They didn't hesitate. They didn't retreat. They attacked. One from the side, another from beneath, 2 from the front. They closed in, eyes locked on their target, voices sharp with battle cries. This wasn't defense, it was domination. The crocodile spun in place, jaws snapping in a furious arc, but the otters were too fast, too precise. One bit down on its hind leg while another slapped the water into its eyes. It was disoriented, its instincts screaming to retreat. But escape was impossible. The otters had already sealed off the exit routes. They had done this before. Every movement was orchestrated with purpose. One otter would feint, drawing the croc's attention, while another struck from behind. Their sharp claws and powerful jaws, though small compared to the reptiles, targeted the weak spots, the soft underbelly, the eyes, the limbs. The crocodile's thrashes grew more desperate, the water churned with blood and foam. This ambush had flipped the script. The hunter had become the hunted. And the otters showed no mercy. Driven by instinct, rage, and something more, perhaps vengeance for past incursions, the family poured every ounce of energy into the assault. The crocodile, mighty though it was, couldn't withstand the combined force. After minutes of relentless attack, it stilled. Lifeless. Defeated. The river, once again, fell quiet. But this wasn't the end. The otters, descendants of nature's most fearless bloodlines, were far from finished asserting their dominance. Their lineage intertwined with that of the honey badger, the infamous, chaos-bringing warrior of the land. And like their cousin, they feared no beast, no matter how large or battle-hardened. Their audacity was unmatched. Later that same day, as the sun filtered through the canopy in golden shards, 4 otters were seen patrolling another bend of the river. There, basking half in shadow, lay a juvenile crocodile. Smaller, but still formidable. The otters noticed it immediately, but did not attack. Not yet. They approached slowly, circling, examining.
The croc remained still, feigning disinterest, though its eyes followed them with quiet tension.
The otters seemed satisfied for a moment and turned away.
But they weren't done.
The fire of mischief burned too brightly in their hearts.
Minutes later, they returned.
Not to fight but to provoke. They swam closer, casually, then began their game. One nudged the croc's tail.
Another flicked water into its face. A third let out a high-pitched chirp, as if laughing. The crocodile held its ground, clearly irritated, yet hesitant. It knew this was a battle it could not win. But the otters didn't relent. Like spirits of the river sent to torment intruders, they poked and prodded, circling tighter, dipping beneath the surface, reappearing unpredictably. When one boldly bit the crocodile's tail and vanished, it was the final straw. With a hiss of frustration, the croc slithered back into the water, defeated not by violence, but by persistent psychological warfare. The otters, triumphant once again, watched in satisfaction.
Then, as if nothing had happened, they resumed their hunt for fish, casual, calm, and eerily quiet. But in the jungle, nothing is ever truly calm. Elsewhere, a leopard stirred in the tall grass, muscles coiled, eyes fixed on a distant target. In this kingdom of claws, teeth, and shadows, power shifted not with words, but with blood. For every predator, no matter how mighty, there was always another waiting to rise.
The jungle remembers. And it never forgets a defeat.
In this eternal game of survival, the river lords had made their mark. The Nile crocodile, an ancient predator forged in the crucible of the wetlands, is known as a monstrous beast, a nightmare cloaked in armored scales and cold-blooded silence. It shares an equally unforgiving reputation with the leopard, whose own blend of elegance and violence makes it one of the deadliest solo hunters on land. These two apex predators, though different in terrain and tactics, are equal in cruelty and ferocity. To compare them is to weigh fear against fear, death against death. It's nearly impossible to crown a definitive victor in this brutal balance of power. But in the parched grip of the sun-scorched savanna, where temperatures soar and even the wind seems to burn, desperation drives risk. A lean and thirsty leopard, pushed to its limits by the merciless drought of the desert fringe, dares to enter the crocodile's watery domain. Parched and exhausted, the leopard approaches the riverbank, lured by the glimmer of cool relief. For a brief moment, the predator lets down its guard, indulging in the life-giving touch of water on its parched tongue. But the stillness hides a nightmare. Without warning, from the deceptive silence of the murky waters, the crocodile erupts. A monstrous surge, jaws wide as a bear trap, latches onto the leopard in a devastating flash. With terrifying power, it drags the feline into the depths. Although leopards are known to be agile swimmers, the water is not their battlefield. This is the crocodile's lair, where death comes with a pull, not a roar. The leopard struggles, but the element betrays it. Within mere seconds, the croc has hauled its prey into the current, its crushing grip like iron. The river swallows the leopard, and the hunter becomes the drowned.
Death is silent, absolute. Elsewhere in this savage land, a different tale unfolds, a confrontation between stealth and supremacy. The leopard, though cunning and deadly, has never been regarded as a real threat by lions.
These jungle kings, larger and far more powerful, rule with brute force and the numbers of their pride. The leopard, in contrast, is solitary, sleek, and elusive. It weighs far less than the lion, relying on agility, stealth, and masterful camouflage to outmaneuver danger rather than face it head-on. Lions hunt in coordinated units, while leopards often fade into the shadows rather than challenge such overwhelming odds. In direct conflict, the leopard almost always retreats, calculating that survival outweighs pride. But in the depths of its wild heart, a grudge can grow. One such vendetta is about to erupt. A seasoned adult leopard, hardened by countless narrow escapes and long-harbored resentment, stalks through the brush. It has just wrapped up an exhausting pursuit of a small antelope, its eyes gleaming with hunger and fury.
Suddenly, it freezes, not from fear, but anticipation.
Not far away, a lioness and her cubs are settling for rest.
She ushers the tiny lions into the underbrush, finding a shaded shelter for their midday nap. She does not sense the predator watching, waiting. The leopard lies low, unmoving, heart thudding like distant war drums. It waits until the lioness steps away, perhaps to scout,
perhaps to hunt, and then, with surgical precision and merciless resolve, it strikes. A blur of fur and claws explodes through the brush. In moments, it emerges, clutching a struggling lion cub in its jaws. To avoid pursuit, the leopard executes its signature move, scaling a nearby tree with terrifying speed and ease. Safe among the branches, it begins to feast, exacting its revenge on a species that once forced it to cower and flee. In the sun-baked terrain of South Africa, rivers are narrow and shallow, especially during the cruel dry season. As the water recedes, the danger beneath becomes more concentrated. Pools turn into traps, and any creature that dares to cross is gambling with its life. The impala, swift and vigilant, knows this better than most. It avoids these treacherous waters unless forced by the claws of fate. One lone impala finds itself marooned on a small sand island, cut off from its herd. Hunger gnaws at its belly, but the river is a mode of death. A massive crocodile, with patience sculpted by evolution, hauls itself onto the island, its intentions unmistakable. The impala must decide, starve, or leap into the croc's kingdom. With no time left, the impala begins a slow, tense arc around the predator. Each step is deliberate, hooves barely disturbing the dust. The crocodile watches, unblinking. Then, with a desperate burst, the impala makes its move, launching into the water in a final bid for survival. But the monster follows. A silent shadow beneath the surface. The moment becomes eternal. And then it strikes. Water explodes as jaws clamp down, and the river runs red. In this untamed world, every heartbeat is a wager. Every choice carries death in its wake. And nature, merciless and magnificent, watches with indifference. Suddenly, the tranquil surface of the muddy river was broken by a powerful surge of movement. From the shallows emerged a colossal hippopotamus, its eyes flaring with fury, its jaws parting in a primal display of territorial dominance. It wasn't just a casual encounter, this was a direct challenge, a punishment, an act of wild justice. The crocodile had made a critical mistake, daring to trespass into the realm of the hippos, dragging its prey through waters that weren't his to rule. Without hesitation, the hippo charged, muscles rippling beneath its thick, gray hide, sending up a wave that rippled outward like a drumroll of doom. Its target? Not just the crocodile, but the prize it had snatched, the lifeless body of a wildebeest, caught in the grip of the reptile's iron jaws. The hippo barreled forward, jaws wide enough to crush bones, aiming to strike both predator and prey, to make a statement that no intruder goes unpunished in these waters. But the crocodile, ancient and cunning, had anticipated the backlash. In a split second of primal instinct, it thrashed its massive tail, vanishing beneath the murky depths and pulling the wildebeest's carcass with it. By the time the hippo reached the scene, there was nothing left but the spiraling eddies and the distant flick of a tail slipping into the shadows. The crocodile had escaped, not victorious, but alive. Elsewhere on the savannah, another life-or-death struggle was unfolding. African buffaloes, those heavy, horned titans of the grasslands, were moving in vast herds across the plains, a living fortress of hundreds, sometimes even thousands. This instinctive unity wasn't just for companionship, it was their most powerful defense. Together, they were almost invincible. But when one strayed, danger was inevitable. Two lionesses, their golden coats blending with the dry grass, noticed a lone buffalo grazing absent-mindedly, unaware of the doom that crept closer with every silent step. Predators live for these moments. They crouched, waited, then launched. The buffalo ran. Desperately. Hooves thundered against the cracked earth. But even its strength couldn't outpace the precision of a lion's hunt. One lioness lunged and sank her claws into the beast's hindquarters. Knowing escape was futile, the buffalo turned, horns forward, eyes burning with defiance. It was ready to face death on its own terms. But defiance alone couldn't stop fate. The second lioness had circled around, silent as a ghost. She leapt, jaws clamping down around the buffalo's throat in a brutal ambush. The mighty animal collapsed, dragged into a pit of mud and hopelessness. Then, just as the lions prepared to finish their kill, salvation charged in with thunder. From the distance, two massive bull buffaloes came storming back, an avalanche of muscle and rage. One struck first, lowering his horned head and ramming a lioness with full force, launching her into the air like a rag doll. Mud exploded upon impact as the predator lost her grip and crashed helplessly into the marsh. The second buffalo followed through, stomping and snorting, his presence radiating fury. The stunned lionesses hesitated. Their prey was slipping away. Worse, so was their control of the moment. Faced with the wrath of the herd, they turned and fled, abandoning the hunt, their pride wounded more than their bodies. Behind them, the battered but alive buffalo slowly rose, chest heaving, eyes wide with the raw thrill of survival. Limping but undefeated, it made its way back to the safety of its herd, where strength lies not in the horns of one, but in the heartbeat of many. The lions, left with nothing but the echo of hooves and a fading scent of blood, could only watch from the shadows, their empty stomachs reminding them that even apex predators sometimes leave the table hungry.